The United States and Philippines have begun their largest ever joint military drills as the allies share concerns about China's assertiveness in the South China Sea. Now, the three-week exercises involve more than 17,000 troops from both sides. That's nearly double last year's 9,000. The annual exercises are dubbed Balikatan, and for the first time, the militaries will hold a live fire drill at sea. The armed forces will sink a decommissioned fishing vessel off the Philippines' west coast, facing the South China Sea. A Filipino major general says that this will be a highlight of the exercise. Previous exercises were held at military bases and involved only Army and Air Force troops.
Our nations and our military forces share an unbreakable bond built through decades of working shoulder to shoulder, promoting peace and stability. In this, the 38th iteration of Balikatan, Philippine and U.S. forces are coming together in large numbers, approximately 17,600 participants in total, demonstrating our commitment to each other and to our mutual defense treaty.
Observers in China see the drills as being related to the 4 new bases that the Philippines has offered the United States access to. 3 of them face north towards Taiwan and 1 of them near the disputed Spratly Islands in the South China Sea. But President Ferdinand Marcos says that they will not be used for offensive action. And meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin will meet their Filipino counterparts in Washington, and it will be the first such joint talks that they've had in 7 years. The allies are going to seek to deepen their bilateral security as well as their economic partnership. Filipino Foreign Secretary Enrique Manalo said that before the dialogue that he cannot see a future where the Philippines doesn't have the United States as a partner. For more, Jagruti Dave joins us live. She's in Washington, D.C. Jagruti, the U.S. is holding this drill, the largest ever joint one with the Philippines, at a time when relations with China, they're already very strained. They were planned before, to be clear, but the timing of them now and the size of them, that may well inflame tensions even further.
Yeah, they very well could. I think the fact that they come so soon after that meeting between Tsai Ing-wen and Kevin McCarthy on U.S. soil, and just as China has completed its own series of drills in response to those meetings, I think that is very perceptually going to be very interesting. But also, I think just the size, not just the timing, the size of this event, as you say, the biggest in 30 years, the nature of the exercises, officials are saying it's going to showcase a rather impressive range of weaponry from both sides. It's going to include a mock explosion, and some of these exercises are happening very close to Taiwan in the seas in the region. So all of this is something that China is clearly going to be watching very carefully. And given that tensions over Taiwan have been inflamed to the extent that they have recently, this is going to do very little to tamp those down, even though officials are saying that these exercises are not aimed at provoking anyone in particular, clearly referring there to China.
Well, at the same time, Jagruti, Antony Blinken is going to make a stopover in Vietnam this week before attending that G7 foreign ministers meeting that's taking place in Japan. How's he going to shore up relations with America's Asian allies during this trip?
I think this trip that Mr. Blinken is going to be making to Vietnam is an example of how the United States is looking much broader than just security, although security does in many ways appear to be a major focus. One of the things we understand from this trip to Vietnam is that it's going to mark the 10th anniversary of the US-Vietnam Comprehensive Partnership. In those last 10 years, bilateral trade and investment has grown significantly between the two sides. Vietnam is America's 8th largest trading partner. So I think this is something that both sides are keen to explore further. And one of the things we understand is that it's going to look, the talks are going to look at ways in which both sides can reduce reliance on China for its supply chains. Now, this is something that the United States has been very keen to pursue, but it also says this is something that would be beneficial to Vietnam. Now, interestingly, countries in the region, in the Indo-Pacific, are keen not to be stuck in the middle of this big rift between the US and China. They want to balance their relations with both of these superpowers. But clearly, the United States sees this sort of face-to-face visits by top-level personnel like Anthony Blinken is very important to keep countries in the Indo-Pacific region on side, as it were. I would try to persuade them perhaps to get deeper, more deeply involved with the United States in security and other areas. Also, it could be that Secretary Blinken's visit is laying some groundwork for a potential Biden visit, which would also do a lot to increase those bilateral ties that the US is so keen to strengthen as it pursues that competitive relationship with China.
Diplomacy always a very fine balancing act. Jagruti, thank you very much for that. Jagruti Dave there in Washington, D.C.